Hi everyone. I'm excited to be here today to talk to you about some of the miracle stories that are happening right here in our own city, in our own state, every day. My name is Tony Kausha, and the title of our show is Tony's 50,000 Coincidence Miracles. Please note, this show is not about religion, and we're not trying to change anyone's religion, and we're not trying to get you to join any religion. It's just about miracle stories. I don't know of any religion on the planet that doesn't talk about miracles. That's why religions begin, because they have something that's telling them there's really a God. But we're not going to get into that. We're going to just talk about miracles and leave the decisions about all that up to you. So we don't care what religion you are. We just want to talk about miracles. If you are an atheist, I think you'll enjoy the program as well, although I can't guarantee you'll remain an atheist very long after you hear many convincing stories, coincidence kinds of stories about miracles. You can email me your own stories if you wish. We'll try to use all we can on the show. I can't guarantee we will, depending on volume and time, but you're welcome to send your stories on to us, and we will mention them when we can. You can send them to the following email address. But please notice that if we do use your story, we won't mention your name. We'll keep you anonymous. And we suggest that in your story, when you send it to us, don't use your correct name. That way anyone listening will not be able to figure out that it was you that sent the story in. The email address you can send your stories to is very easy to remember. It consists of 2 words and 3 numbers. The first word is Tony, spelled Tony, and the second word is and, spelled AND, and the numbers are 777. So once again, the name is Tony and 777 at AOL.com. Well, let us begin. Our first coincidence miracle today is from someone who tells us that when they were a youngster, younger than 18 years old anyway, their father was blessed and gifted with the gift of healing and was well known in their neighborhood. And people who had back problems or leg problems or bone problems would come by and ask him to pray for them. And she said there were many times where people came to their house and she would see her father praying over someone, putting his hands on their shoulder and praying, whether audibly or silently, she didn't say. But she would actually see the person's leg. Her father would have them stretch their legs out, depending on what kinds of problems they had with their back or their legs, and they would sit on the floor and put their legs straight out, and she would see something happen to the legs, like one leg was shorter than the other, and while he was praying over them, the shorter leg would expand and move and reach the same size as the other leg, and the person felt the healing at that point. So they're telling us about the father had this gift. The father's no longer living, but the father had this gift in history, and she wanted to share that with us. And I've heard this, I think about 10 times in my life, that there are people like this who pray over other people, and these miracles of the leg stretching out, I've heard that maybe 10 times in my life. So I thank the person for sharing a story with us, because this is something more current than my stories. And it's really great to have somebody else sharing stories that I've experienced so I can tell you their story instead of my story. Our next coincidence miracle story is someone who tells us they took some time to go help one of their relatives who lives an hour's drive away. They took some time one day and they went over to visit them. They're a shut-in. They have other relatives in their area of Connecticut, but this person went to try to be helpful and visit and cheer them up because they are a shut-in. And in the process, they wound up spending 4 hours helping them clean up and tidy things up in their house and making things more convenient for them to function because they are a shut-in. And they felt good about, trying to love their relative and visit with them and make their life a little better. But the thing they wanted us to know was that after they left and they were driving back home, the very first stop sign that they came to with their car, another car came into the intersection, and the car's license plate number was 777. And I'm sure all of you who have been listening regularly know this number comes up very often in our radio shows. If you're new to this, listening to us, this number is God's number in the Bible. 3 6s is told in the Bible as being the devil's number. And I've done a lot of research, and you'd find a lot of research on our website and in my book that explains how the number 777 is God's number, and we have a lot of evidence and a lot of proof of that. But this was a great story because the person feels, that they come to the intersection, they see the 3 7s, which tells them that God is pleased with them. It's like God patting them on the patting them on the head, because God is saying you did a good job. You helped somebody, you helped your relative, you did a good thing, and God arranges for this car to be going by at exactly the same precise moment, exactly to the second in timing. Our next coincidence miracle is from someone who tells us they're getting up in the morning now and asking God when they get up in the morning to inspire them with things that he wants them to do. Just put those thoughts, we say, God, please inspire us. All we're asking him to do is put a thought into our mind of things he wants us to accomplish that day. And we've shared this many, many times on our radio shows, and many people experience blessings when they do that. So this person is into the habit now of asking every morning before they put their feet on the floor, before they get out of bed, they ask God to inspire them. And they got inspired one day to send a text to a very good friend of theirs who's having back problems and back pain. And they've talked on the phone over the last couple of weeks, but they have been out of touch for like the last 3 days. So they were inspired to send a text and say they were praying for them and hoping that their back pain has subsided and that they're getting good results from their medication and from their doctor, just to cheer them up. And so they felt God wanted them to do that. So immediately, as they got out of bed, they sent a text saying that. And then the coincidence miracle was that later that day, one of the things they got inspired to do that day was to clean up a certain area in the attic. And they were cleaning up a certain area in the attic, and they relate to us that they found a letter that they had received from this friend, the friend they had texted earlier in the day, and they saw a letter. They had forgotten all about it. They got the letter many years ago, and so their coincidence miracle is a confirmation that God inspired them to send a text to the friend in the morning, and later that day God inspired them to be cleaning the attic. And they just coincidentally stumbled on this letter in a box that they were moving around in the attic. So that's how coincidence miracles happen, and that's how we know God did them, because if you keep asking God what to do, and he tells you to send a text, and then he tells you to clean the attic, then you know that he's orchestrating the coincidence miracles that you're seeing. That's how we notice coincidence miracles, because we're asking God to inspire us about what to do. Our next coincidence miracle is a short story, but it tells us two things. This person's telling us that they were awakened one morning at 4:44 in the morning, and they hear me spouting that all the time because that's very often for me. I wake up like that because my wife passed away and went to heaven on 4:44 in the morning, and so God uses that to wake me up every once in a while. And when I wake up at 4:44 in the morning, I think of my wife, and that's the time she went to heaven several years ago. And then they relate to us that on the very next day, they were awakened at 5:55 in the morning. And so they wanted to share with us that they're noticing coincidence miracles par excellence here. One day they wake up at 4:44, and the next day they wake up at 5:55. So thank God for digital clocks, because they help us to notice these coincidence miracles. And to this person, they're sharing what they believe God did. They believe that God woke them up. They don't think that they just woke up on their own. They believe God did it because of the coincidence that one day was 444 and the next day was 555. Somebody was orchestrating this in their mind, and I agree 100%. Our next coincidence miracle is something I'll contribute because of the story we just heard about. I'm reminded of this miracle that happened to me. I was awakened one morning, and I asked also, because I do the same thing, I ask God in the morning to tell me things He wants me to do during that day. And I asked, what's the keynote for today? What keynote do you want me to focus on? It was on a Sunday morning, and I was inspired to remember Jeremiah chapter 7, verses 23 through 24. So Jeremiah 7, 23, 24 is where God said to the Israelites, if you will do what I tell you to do, if you follow my instructions, everything will go well for you. And so that was the keynote for my day. The message for me was keep asking God what to do all day long, and if I keep doing that, I'll have a very blessed day. So I got up, and it was close to the time for our show to air. This was on Sunday morning, and our show starts at 7:45 in the morning. So it was before that time, and I put the radio on, and I heard the show before ours, which is a minister, and he was quoting a scripture. He was quoting Matthew 7, chapter 7, verse 7. And Matthew 7:7 is where God tells us, whatever we ask for in prayer, whatever we ask of God in prayer, and we believe and don't doubt, that we will receive it. And so that confirmed for me the message for my day, because I was inspired to keep asking God what to do all day and that He would guide me. And now the first thing I hear, the first thing that happens is this wonderful confirmation that as I turn the radio on to listen to our radio show, I'm hearing the minister before our show is sharing Matthew 7:7. So I think it's worthwhile for everybody to remember. Matthew 7:7 is very easy to remember. It's 2 sevens. So Matthew chapter 7, verse 7, if you remember that, that's where God promises you whatever you ask Him in faith and trust and confidence, He will answer you, and you'll receive what He tells you if you do what He tells you to do. Our next coincidence miracle story is from someone who tells us that they were inspired. They prayed and got inspiration to go to Walmart and look for a product that was going to clean their stovetop. It's a glass stovetop, and there's apparently from their cooking they've got some sediment there, and they need to get a special cleaner because what they've been using hasn't been working. And so they prayed about what to do, and they got inspired to go to Walmart. So when they got to Walmart, they asked for advice on where to go, and somebody directed them to a certain place in the store. And they went over there, and they spent a lot of time looking and reading labels. And all of a sudden, somebody came around the corner, and they were shopping in the same aisle, and they were looking at the same things. So this person who was shopping, our person, asked the other person about what product to use for this cleaning, and they said to them, "Oh no, you're in the wrong section of the store. No. What you need to do is go over to the cleaner section," and they gave them some directions, and they said, "Go look for Dawn Spray. You go there and you look for Dawn Spray, and you'll be happy with what you find." So they went to that area of the store, and when they got there, they couldn't find Dawn Spray. So another person came around the corner, and they said, "Excuse me, can you help me find Dawn Spray?" And the person said, "I don't know if I can find Dawn Spray, but you just found Dawn because my name is Dawn." And so this person thought they would share with us a little humorous note that asking God what to do led them to find a person named Dawn. And by the way, they were standing right next to Dawn Spray. The person named Dawn was standing right next to it when they said, "I don't know if I can help you." God bless you all. I'll talk to you next week.